Welcome to Drawsh Studio. Today we're going to construct complex forms using many different perspective tools. Let's get started. This video references many techniques covered in previous videos. If you want to see detailed explanations of these techniques, click the links as they pop up. Now let's do some construction. As always, we start with a horizon line, and we can place two vanishing points as far apart on our paper as we can. Keeping them far apart means the station point is further away and will give us less distortion. We're going to build complex forms on top of the most basic form in perspective, a big box. Now let's make this into a more complex form. We can add a section on top coming out here, but let's make it the same width in perspective as the box. We can use the repeating depth technique by finding the center of the box and drawing a line from the top front corner through the center of the back to the ground. This allows us to repeat the width of the box in space. Now we can draw lines to our vanishing points to create the extended cantilever section. Now let's remove a section from the other side. I want it to be a section cut out of the center of this plane. We can use the X trick to divide this plane and know that the section we remove is symmetrical and in the middle. Then we take the corners to the right vanishing point to create depth. Let's make this section more interesting by extending the opening. To do this, we can create another section that we can again divide using the X trick to keep it centered. Then we take the corners of this new section to the right vanishing point to create depth. Let's make an interesting ramp on this same side. First, we use our vanishing points to inscribe the ground plane where the ramp will sit. Then draw a line giving us the angle of the ramp. A perspective line across the vanishing point will give us the point to connect the far angle of the ramp. Now we can cut away sections of the ramp to make it more unique. By drawing perspective lines across the top of the ramp, down the sides, and along the ground plane, we can break the ramp into three sections. We always want to draw fully around the form with perspective lines to make sure the forms are correct in three-dimensional space. But we need to reconnect the middle section to give a way for figures to walk up the ramp. To make sure it's in the middle, we can draw lines down from the center section we created earlier. We also need to know where those points would connect to the front of the ramp, so we draw perspective lines across the ground plane. Tracking these points in space allows us to connect all of our lines accurately. We can darken the back lines to see the ramp take shape. For the side planes closest to us, we draw lines down and track the perspective lines across the ground. And we can create a walkway here by drawing perspective lines to the vanishing points and then connecting them with an angle. Let's cut two openings into the side of the box here, leaving a space in between them. Because the openings will have irregular spacing, we can use a measuring line. We will draw a horizontal line from the original corner of the box and divide it to give us a gap between the edge of the wall and a space in between the openings. Then we will draw a line from the back corner of the box to the horizon for our measuring point, and use this point to connect back to each of our divisions. Now we have the odd space measurements marked in perspective. We draw a perspective line across the plane to indicate the top of the openings, connect our measurements to it, and then create depth by going through the openings to the other vanishing point. Now we have these irregular doorways accurately drawn in perspective. To make it feel more grand, let's elevate this entrance with some stairs. First, we will use our vanishing points to draw a large rectangle that is the size we want the stairs to be. Then we divide the side plane using the X trick again. We keep dividing until we have the number of stairs we want. Each division across the plane represents one step. Now we draw the rise and run of the steps to the ground. Then we can find the back plane of the box and repeat these divisions to get the same rise and run steps in perspective. Next, we connect the front and back corners of each rise and run with lines to the vanishing point, and we have our stairs. But since we raised the entrance, we need to draw perspective lines from the top of the stairs to create depth. Our construction is looking good, but the top of our building seems a little plain. So let's add some extensions up here. We simply need to draw lines from our vanishing points through the box form and inscribe where the extension connects to the side plane. Then decide how long the extension will be and create its depth by drawing lines to the other vanishing point. We do the same on the back side, and now we have two large cantilever sections coming out. We can make these even more interesting by carving or adding sections to them. We simply need to inscribe a shape on the side plane, always making sure the lines connect back to our vanishing points. Then draw lines across to the other vanishing point to create depth. We can do something more complex on the bottom. We will inscribe an angle for the side plane like before, and then carry each of those points back in space to the other vanishing point. These lines give us 2 of the 3 points on the other side. To find the middle point, we draw a perspective line here to mimic what is on the front side. Where it crossed the other perspective line is the last point. Then we just connect the dots. For the other side, let's do something different and add to the form instead of cutting sections out. We can extend this line down and then connect an angle back up. Then track those new corners to the other vanishing point to create depth. On the top, we can draw a line up, create a top section from the left vanishing point, and create depth by going to the right vanishing point. Now our cantilever sections are opposite of each other and more interesting forms. Adding a few forms in the background will give it even more interest and add a sense of scale. If you want to create a more clear sense of scale, a recognizable object like a human figure will give us context. First, let's pick a spot on the ground to place our figure, and choose a scale that feels appropriate. If we want to draw a correctly scaled figure back here in one of the doorways, we can draw a line down to the ground and track the size of the figure back to that point. Then we simply raise up the figure at that size until it's standing in the doorway. To finish off our image and make it look even better, we can draw all of the profile edges thicker than the inner contours. The profile edges are all of the outermost contours. By making the profile edges thicker, it creates variation in our line work, which is more pleasing to the eye, and it helps create depth by giving visual clues to what's outside and inside of an object. We can also add color to the piece. Using a light tone, a mid-tone, and a dark tone creates depth in our planes. And here we have our scene with complex constructed forms. Try this for yourself. Start with a simple box in perspective, then use all of these tools to add or subtract to it, and make your own amazing complex forms. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to go to Drawsh.com for more information on these topics and many more. If you want to see more videos like this, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one.